Thank you for tuning in. This is DJ Fobfresh from SegaShiro.com, the Sega resource, and today we're kicking it old school again, bringing you another Saturn review. This is X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and probably one of the best reasons to own a Sega Saturn. Now this title is arcade perfect, pixel perfect, and in fact, once this game is paired with the 4 meg cartridge in the Sega Saturn, well, really there is no other way to play it, but once it is paired, there's only one load time in the game, so presentation-wise, Capcom did a fantastic job bringing this over in 1997. The load time is about 15 seconds and it happens right at the beginning of the game, and from that point forward, you are given a pixel-perfect, super fast version of the arcade classic at this point. Now this is definitely a title that showcased the strengths of the Saturn. When compared to the PlayStation version, really there's no comparison. The PlayStation version had choppy animations, missing frames everywhere, and on top of that, you couldn't use the game's most unique feature, which was the tag team mode. Now, if you are looking to import this title is very import friendly. As you can see through the option mode, it's almost entirely presented in English, all of the voices are in English, and in fact the only thing you're missing out on is the between match quips, so the things that the fighters say to each other after you win or lose a match, those are all in Japanese. Game endings are also presented in Japanese. However, between the controller or an arcade stick, both of which rock on the Sega Saturn, this is an excellent game to import. The character list is pretty deep, however a bit small compared to later entries in the Versus franchise. However, you gotta remember that this is the game that really started it all. This is the one that kind of merged Capcom with Marvel and really birthed Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which would come many years later. But without this game, that would never happen. So this title really merged Street Fighter Alpha with X-Men Children of the Atom, and it added a few new characters, and that was Rogue, Gambit, and Sabretooth, both which are incredibly designed in this game. In fact, most of the designs in this game are stellar. So there are 8 Street Fighter characters and 8 X-Men characters with the addition of Akuma, so there are technically 9 Street Fighter characters. And all the characters seem pretty fleshed out. Of course, you know, there will always be some characters that you miss, but in general, you'll find someone you want to battle with. If someone were to pitch this game to me, I would have almost been confused. However, Capcom did a wonderful job merging the art styles of the X-Men and Street Fighter universes together. They're both over the top. They've really kind of upped the scale and really made a game for people with low attention spans. However, it's a brilliant title, so that kind of leads me into the next part of this. While the game is fantastic, it's a ton of fun. It's even fun if you're playing with friends. However, what this game isn't, it isn't technical enough to be considered a competitive or tournament-based fighter. That isn't to say that, again, it isn't fun. It's incredibly fun. It's just that there's exploits and a variety of moves that you can spam together. It's really easy to pull off supers in this, and especially it's very easy to kind of block moves and get out of things. So I mean, I guess you could make the argument that this game isn't terribly balanced. However, I almost feel like they made those concessions for the sake of just wild fun. Despite any technical shortcomings in terms of the game fighting engine, this is a much-loved fan fighting series. Fans have patronized the next editions of the game. We eagerly await the next Versus title, I know I am. And so, this series really has done a lot to endear itself to fans' hearts, and part of that is the fact that it's wild and crazy, and it's pick up and play. So anybody, regardless of fighting game skill, provided they know how to throw a fireball and do a couple other classic Street Fighter moves, can really pick up this game and enjoy. So in between the air combo system and aerial raves, the variable counter, which replaced the old infinity counter, and the variable combination, which is the 2-person hyper combo, this game really does a lot to make you feel powerful, and in a game like this, that's a success. If you also add to the fact that then you can do fantasy matchups between, you know, characters like Cyclops and Wolverine, you know, the lovers spat between Gambit and Rogue, This game really opened up opportunities to have fans just kind of geek out, and that's always enjoyable. In terms of graphics, the sprites still look fantastic, the animations are still great, especially if you play this on a CRT monitor. You know, it hasn't looked like it's aged a day since it was released, which is pretty incredible. Now granted, games have come a long way since then. 2D fighting games have also come a long way since then, and yet still this game can look fantastic when you play it in the way it was meant to be played. The music in this game is also classic Capcom form. It's very, very catchy. It'll have you humming along in no time. A lot of the themes are just rearranged from classics. In an interesting little bit of trivia, this is actually the first time that Cammy actually ever appeared in her Shadaloo costume. I know hardcore fans would dig that. What can I say? Really, if you're a collector, if you're a Sega Saturn fan, if you're a fighting game fan, this is a title that you gotta have in your collection. This is DJ Fob Fresh signing out, saying keep on gaming.